Yo, what's up YouTube? This is Gresnick, and welcome back to a reaction video. It's been a bit, mainly because for the past bit I've been recording, not recording, I've been posting my Deltarune playthrough of Chapter 5 on the other channel, so if you haven't watched that or subscribed to the Gresnick Plays channel, please do. It's a little early to say that, but today we will be reacting to Have We Finally Solved Secret of the Mimic by Rytoast. I don't know. This game was big, honestly. Not as big as Security Breach was, but it was still rather big and pretty lore dense, I think. So I'm excited to see what he ends up talking about in this. And everything that, didn't mean to full screen that. Everything that we know so far. Hopefully we have, because it has been a year. Which I find insane, because I swear this game did not come out that long ago. As always, if you enjoy this video, like and subscribe to Rytoast and myself. You can also go over to my other channel, Gresnick Plays, and you can watch my Deltarune playthrough. So go like and subscribe over there for more gaming content. You can also go join my Discord, Gresnick Studios, which you can. I actually fixed the link for Gresnick Studios in my YouTube description. I accidentally messed that up. So, well, let's get into the video. I'm interested.
It has been an entire calendar year since
Which
Secret
is
of the Mimic
insane.
came out. And when it first came out, a bunch of us in the community were spamming out videos to try to figure out this game and get every theory and angle we could.
Yeah, as
and
quickly
since then,
as
we've
possible.
only discovered more and more evidence. But after all these theories and speculations and recaps, the question remains, a year after its release, how close are we to actually solving what the Secret of the Mimic is trying to tell us? Can it be solved?
do
Slices,
wonder.
put on your aprons and let's bake ourselves a
I'm
theory.
gonna bet
I
like
think what makes the most sense for a video like this is to just go over
70%.
literally everything we know and don't know about Secret of the Mimic. So we'll
All
start
right.
with the most direct information, the most agreeable and easily proven direct story of Secret of the Mimic. And before you scoff and be like, is a recap really necessary for the plot of the game?
I mean,
this is
yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's. The plot of the game is often barely comprehensible. Like, look at Help Wanted 2. Look me in the eyes. Can
Oh, God.
you honestly tell me with 100% certainty what the plot of Help Wanted 2 is? Because
No.
I can't, and I've done this for a living for
no,
like
I
5
can't.
years. I don't know if we're reviewing security tapes or going through the mind of Cassie's dad. I don't even know if we are Cassie's dad.
Pretty
so
sure
in this
we are.
franchise, it's helpful to go over what direct plot lines we may or may not have. So that being said, what is the direct plot line of Secret of the Mimic? You know, after I abandoned the idea of having
Why are you
dry
in the
shoes,
pool
this
rooms
place
again?
Isn't too bad anymore. Although, man, is it expansive. I feel like I keep walking around in circles. Oh wait, this is new. A sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by is all the same.
As I always say, use their code or whatever to support them. They aren't sponsoring me, so I really don't care.
Thanks again to Free Cash for sponsoring.
But since this
today's
video is rather new, yeah, you should
when I
still
get out
go.
of here,
You
I
could
guess I can
probably
treat myself to
grab a
nice
good
dinner.
deal.
Let's keep moving. We play as Arnold, a Fazbear employee who's told he's being sent to Murray's Costume Manor to collect whatever the late Edwin Murray was working on for the company. When we get there, we find the main thing Fazbear wants to collect is the Mimic, an endoskeleton that's able to put on any costume and pretend to be any character. The problem is, it has some, quote, homicidal glitches, so you have to be careful.
Yeah.
But clearly the idea of a mimic is invaluable to Fazbear Entertainment. They could basically replace all of their animatronics with one animatronic, or at least one on a mass scale. And while we're there, we learn
Which
more
would be a really
about
good
Murray's
idea,
Costume
actually.
Manor and what led to its inevitable downfall, all the while avoiding the mimic in various costumes. And at the end of the game, we learn that the voice we'd been trusting from Fazbear, Dispatch, very soon into the game was replaced by a separate iteration of the mimic. The first iteration, actually, M1, versus the thing that's been chasing us through the hallways, M2. The 3 endings of the game give Arnold 3 different outcomes. In one, he gets the schematics, but is tricked by M1 into handing them over, thinking that he's giving it to Dispatch. Once he leaves the facility, the actual Dispatch reprimands him for giving away Fazbear property and fires him. But it gets worse, because apparently the Mimic hid in our van and
For
kills
some
us,
reason.
stuffing us into a prototype Freddy suit. He dies not even knowing what he did wrong. The second ending, which many people, myself included, believe to be the canon ending, is what happens if Arnold tried a little harder to figure out what was going on. Presumably in this ending, he's realized that Dispatch isn't Dispatch anymore, and instead of handing over the data diver, which had the schematics on it, he activates parachute.exe and escapes out of the security office, going deeper into the facility to find out what's actually going on, finding a prototype Freddy Fazbear's Pizza underground, and encountering F10 and 4, the computer console in which M1, the voice he's been talking to, actually resides in. She tells us that her plan was to obtain the Mimic schematics and get them to Edwin Murray, so he could then repair M2 and turn it back into her son again. Her son, David Murray, who's also dead. So we travel through a tunnel system to the manor, and we try to do that. We try to find Edwin by getting into his office, only to find that it's been blown up. And when we get there, it's revealed that Edwin Murray was caught in an explosion caused by the Mimic sabotaging whatever he was working on. We then instead activate something called cradle.exe and try to get out of there. The Mimic giving chase, but we manage to make it to our van, fending it off from the Mimic and what I'm going to call the Mimiclings. Because, like, who knows what they're supposed to be called? I like the Mimiclings. Feed us, we're the Mimiclings. However, he doesn't get away fast enough. M2 is on top of the hood of his car, causes him to crash, and then in the burning rubble of his car, M2 walks up, takes the data diver from Arnold, and leaves him be. He doesn't care about Arnold. He wants the data diver with the Mimic schematics on it. He then walks into the woods. The third ending is equally important to the story, but insane. After getting every collectible, you're able to beat something called moon.exe, an old text-based styled adventure that sees you doing weird esoteric metaphors about what the Mimic is and what it means to its family. It eventually becomes Moon at some point. Regardless, doing that gives you the glitched permission, which allows you access into the other rooms.
This is such a weird ending in my opinion.
In those rooms, you can collect Storytime tapes and put back together the Storytime machine. Activating it with the White Tiger plushie you get at the beginning of a New Game Plus playthrough, you then get to stun the Mimic by playing a Storytime in the voice of his mother, Fiona. Stunning him long enough, you can take the data diver and repair
reprogram
the Mimic like
him,
Fiona
kind
wants
of.
to. And it works. It reverts back into David, takes his plushie, goes to bed, and shuts down. It seems perfectly docile this way. And that's
like the perfect ending, but it can't
Arnold,
be the real
sent by
one.
Fazbear, is trying to collect the Mimic schematics. He does every time. The question is, which ending is canon? Does he give it back to M1 and is caught and killed? Does he try to escape but is caught by
Honestly,
M2?
it's either the first or second. The third one is not possible in my opinion.
But if that's the direct story, what's the deeper story? What's the undercurrent of what's going on here? Well, the subtext of this game is not only the origins of the Mimic, but how Fazbear obtained Murray's costume manor and how William Afton has direct hands in it. So let's start with that titular secret of the Mimic. There's a good amount of secrets in this game, so exactly which secret is the secret, that's our debate. But it's most likely the fact that after all of this, we found out the secret of the Mimic is that there's at least two. As we mentioned,
the secret of the Mimic was the friends we made along the way.
Was the first iteration of the Mimic, and over time it primarily copied Fiona's personality. Under the instruction of Edwin for the Mimic to take care of David after Fiona Murray's death. Edwin seems to believe that M1 is possessed by Fiona in some way, but that is just speculation. However, after the death
it's just
of
him
David
going
Murray,
crazy.
M1 was then unsatisfied. Her entire job as a robot is to watch after David Murray. So without a David Murray, she has no purpose. She brings up to Edwin that all he has to do is make another Mimic. Then that Mimic can pretend to be David, and she can watch over David again. There's a bit of a confusing moment here, because in the logs we find, he never is okay with this. He says it's a bad idea, he says he never should have done it, and he doesn't want to do it. He never should have made Fiona, he's not going to make David, it wouldn't be right. But we have audio logs of the Mimic pretending to be like David, and Edwin beating it senselessly for it because he can't handle that as a grieving father. So at some point, either he did, or M1 went behind his back and made one anyway.
Yeah, who knows at this point.
And this is mostly speculation, that M1 gave up its body for M2 to inhabit. We know from the various messages and logs that Edwin was not able to replicate the Mimic. He made
there's
M1
only one
successful,
physical
but
Mimic.
no matter what he tried, he couldn't figure out what the missing part was for M2 to happen. He could not figure out how to make an M2. And if part of that is the endoskeleton, I could see a world where M1 instructs Edwin to make the F10 and 4 console for M1 to go inside of, to then let M2 use that body. That's all very speculative. I'm just saying it's unclear if there was ever a second endoskeleton. They look identical and we never see them in the same room. But like I mentioned, just like in the books, the sight of the Mimic pretending to be his dead son is too much for Edwin to process, and he just beats the Mimic senseless, rendering its legs useless. But what Edwin fails to consider is that the entire point of the Mimic is it observes its environment and replicates it. So if you beat the thing senseless, break its legs, what do you think's gonna happen, Edwin? It's really giving, where's the robot, Mansley? Regardless, sometime later, M2 repairs its own legs, and then sabotages something Edwin was working on, so it blew up in his face, literally. And in the rubble, Edwin
broke his
calls
legs.
M2 to come help and call for help, to which M2 responds, one of my favorite moments. Honestly, here,
one of the
I'll let it play
best
for itself.
moments in the whole
Here's
game, in my
first reaction
opinion.
to it.
M2, respond. Emergency. Call for help.
Daddy's business, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play?
Such a good moment. Such a great line.
So now we have M1, the first iteration of the Mimic, trapped within the confines of the F10N4 console. And we have M2 in the endoskeleton that can put on any costume, wandering the facility and murdering anyone it comes across.
Because of course it is.
M1 isn't aware that Edwin is probably dead.
Yeah, that's the one
To
problem.
take these schematics to Edwin, and uses her last reserve power to directly talk to who she thinks is Edwin in the elevator of the mansion. So that's what's happening with the Murrays and the Mimics. But there is a second undercurrent story going on here. The business relationship between the Fazbear brand and Murray's Costume Manor.
Yep.
MCM was
This
in
is the
dire
interesting
straits.
part, in my
Edwin Murray's
opinion.
father, Edwin Murray Sr., was a brilliant businessman and was able to run this business efficiently. Edwin Murray Jr. was just the funny inventor guy who would make up fun ideas, and sometimes they were successful, but there's no pressure. Then his father died and he took over the company, and he clearly was not a businessman. He did make the Cleanovac, which was wildly successful and shot the business into profitability. And he was never able to make something that good again, and it slowly dwindled down into near bankruptcy. The main problem was anything else Edwin made would fail horribly, or hurt people and then result in lawsuits and returns. William Afton, the ever-shrewd businessman he was, saw an opportunity here. Fazbear already had a partnership with MCM. If he was able to buy up the company, instead of having to pay partnership fees, he could just keep Edwin as an engineer, keep all the assets, and just use them, thus beginning the process of William Afton undermining what was left of MCM to make them easier to buy, starting with the Fazbear contract. Something that, on the face of it, promised Edwin freedom of the bankruptcy, something that could fully save the company, an insane amount of money for an admittedly insane amount of work. The contract is never directly stated, but it seems to be a prototype pizzeria that can act as another showroom for MCM, all the while making a fresh slew of animatronics for Fazbear's new restaurant, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But not only was this project wildly expensive and time-consuming, anytime they became close to finishing the contract, William Afton would change it or tweak it in some way, getting a near-finished product and then telling them to change everything, deliberately wasting time and money. Two things that MCM
There's
had
not much
no
I can
more.
commentate
And not
here,
only was
really.
William Afton doing that, but as conditions worsened, William Afton reached out to presumably one of the head executives of MCM and promised them a managerial position at the new branch of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza if they can get him a contact sheet of the entire staff at MCM. We know he got it because we have other messages from employees talking about how Fazbear keeps reaching out to them about a better job. Better safety, better benefits, better job. And it was working. Employees bled from MCM at their deepest,
Papa
most
John's is one
dire
of the better
moment.
pizza
So,
places
with the business crumbling under
that
his
I've
feet,
had.
running out of money, running out of jobs, and running out of employees, Edwin Murray receives one more email from William Afton offering to buy up MCM. And if William wasn't the one assisting in the end of this business, it would be frankly a very generous offer. William Afton says, I'll buy up the company and retain all the rights to Murray's Costume Manor, but Edwin Murray can keep his position as head engineer and keep living in the house that's on company property. That's frankly a great deal for someone who's about to lose everything. Now, we don't know what Edwin's response was. It likely would have been no. After all, we do have audio logs about how Edwin was sure that Fazbear was working against him, to the point where apparently his father said never to trust Fazbear. I don't know what that could possibly be about.
No clue.
Regardless, it
I
doesn't
don't think
really
anybody
matter,
knows.
because presumably around the same time is when M2 killed Edwin Murray. So William Afton bought up the rest of the company anyway, and the land it's on, which is why this land that looks strikingly similar to the land the Pizzaplex is on is probably the same land the Pizzaplex is built on 50 years later, and why right now William Afton
And
is
also
sending
the
employees
place
to
the
go fetch
pizzeria
mimic
simulator
before
was.
they go and sweep the rest of the place. So we've
How many
covered the main
locations
story
are going
and
to
the
take place in
subtext,
this same
the
plot of
sub-story.
land?
If you played the game and paid attention, this is pretty much what you get. There's barely any speculation, besides some of the one-off mentions of speculation that I called out at the time. But this is Five Nights at Freddy's. We're here for theories. So within the year that this came out, what theories have arose from Secret of the Mimic, and have we solved any of them?
A
Well,
lot.
there are plenty of theories and plenty of places that this slots into and connects throughout the timeline. But the most important theories for the timeline of FNAF, I believe, are where the characters of Secret of the Mimic ended up, if any of them survived, and how much technology from Murray's Costume Manor is things we thought William and Henry invented. So let's start with
Just
who's
Springlock
still
suits
alive
in
the
general.
timeline. Alright, I keep saying Edwin Murray is presumably dead. Why isn't he definitively dead? Well,
We don't
the answer
know.
is twofold. For one, we never get direct confirmation that Edwin Murray is dead, and in a series where we have plenty of direct confirmation of deaths, that is worthwhile to point out. Not to mention in the books, he is alive much later in the timeline. But the second problem is the now infamous silhouette. Sometime after the game launched, Secret of the Mimic received a major update to patch a bunch of the bugs and glitches and make the game generally more stable. But unmentioned in the patch notes, and seemingly out of nowhere, there's a window that you can see from the security office across the warehouse that goes into the office where the digityper is. And in that window, they added a moving humanoid silhouette, which is crazy. It's throughout most of the game.
For
and
some
it can't
reason.
be the Mimic or digityper, because there are moments when the Mimic can't be in there, and digityper gets destroyed within an hour, and it's still there after. So it has to be something else. I've made a full video on just this silhouette in the past, and my findings were basically that it's either William or Henry, a brand new character, or Edwin Murray. I don't think it's William or Henry because Fazbear knows how dangerous
I
this
don't
place
think it
is.
would be
No way
Edwin.
would
He
William
lost
and
his
Henry roll up
legs.
willingly. I don't know if it's a new character because there's literally no way to know if
Yeah.
a character we don't know exists. So for the time being, I'm shelving that, which only leaves Edwin Murray as our third possibility. Not to mention that Digityper office is fairly nearby Edwin Murray's office if you go through a path that we can't access in the game. And there's an exit door
point.
pointing in that direction. So Edwin Murray could theoretically be going in through that exit door, but we don't have any way to know. So the question for is Edwin Murray still alive? Maybe. Moving on, what about M1 and M2? Well, they're robots, they don't age, and we know for a fact the Mimic endoskeleton is still around by the end of Ruin. And at least one of the MXES consoles is also around because we turn it off at the end of Ruin. So it's nearly definitive that M2 is still around. M1 speculation is much more mixed. Some people believe that M1 eventually becomes Glitch Trap. I tend to believe that Glitch Trap
really
manifested
could be.
after the Mimic schematics in the Data Diver are scanned into Help Wanted, making a new iteration of the Mimic, which then leaves
I mean,
everyone as a
that could
question.
work.
That being said, I then
I
believe
think
that M1
it's
is
the
the AI in charge of
schematics for the
controlling
Endo.
Pizzaplex, but that's really heavy speculation.
I mean,
So
those are the
M2,
AI
for
technically,
sure,
so who
M1
knows?
somewhere, which then leaves the final question of who's still around being at David and Fiona. Obviously, they've died, but the question then is, what about their spirits? Is there any supernatural possession going on?
It doesn't
At this
seem
point,
to
with the
be,
evidence
really.
in front of us, it's mostly up to personal interpretation. The game leaves it purposefully open-ended, so you're never sure if something is a
Well, I mean,
ghost or
Fiona
a
died
robot
at
acting
Fall
strange.
Fest, and
The game does, however, purposefully go out of
David
its
got
way
hit by
to
a
tell the
car,
player
so
that
there's not really
Edwin
any
at least thinks that
animatronics he
Fiona's
could.
spirit is still around. I tend to believe that David's spirit is still around, acting as the White Tiger. A sort of
Possibly,
playful spirit
since
that isn't necessarily
Tiger's
trying
so
to kill
weird.
people, but it's trying to play with people that enter its room and accidentally killing them along the way. As far as Fiona, I'm hesitant to say Fiona's possessing anything. M1 never
She died at
acts
Fall
enough
Fest.
like Fiona for a possession to fully make sense. I way more believe interpretations like FNAF's theory, that the Mimic overheard Edwin wishing and hoping that Fiona was still around and talking about how he needs her to watch David, and the Mimic, like it's said in commercials before, knows what we want.
I mean, that
So it
makes
then
sense,
began
I
to
guess.
pretend like Fiona was still around, acting as though M1 was possessed by Fiona in the best way it could. I would watch his full video on the evidence for that because there's a lot of really good evidence pointing that way. So all in all, as far as are any of these characters still around, I would say Edwin is a maybe, M1 is a somewhere, M2 is a yes, David is a maybe as a ghost, and Fiona is a probably not. But then
Makes
what about that other
sense.
question? How much of the technology we've known from Five Nights at Freddy's was made by William Afton or Henry Emily, and how much of it was just stolen from Edwin Murray?
I mean,
Possibly the biggest
designs
impact Secret of the
probably
Mimic
were
has
stolen
on the
completely.
entire FNAF timeline is establishing exactly where William gets his materials for the beginning of it. And
I
I'm
mean, like,
mainly
the
speaking about
designs
the buildings
probably
we
almost
see FNAF
entirely were stolen
unfold
for
inside of.
Edwin
For
from
example,
the
house on the hill in
Endos.
Secret of the Mimic bears a striking
But,
resemblance
like,
to the
the,
FNAF 4 house. Enough of it that I'm willing to believe after cleaning up the fire damage from that explosion, a simple renovation turned it into the FNAF 4 house. Or the fact
Like,
that
Edwin
Murray's
definitely
costume
made
manor
the
is
spring lock
almost
suits, but I
definitively
think
built upon
the
same lot
Endos,
that
or I mean
eventually the
Endos
security
that
breach
William and
pizza
Henry
plex is
made were
built on
probably
top
just
of as
copied.
well. But those are surface
Who
level.
knows, honestly?
Literally, it's on the surface of the ground. What's more speculative, yet way more useful for the timeline, is what's underground. It's common knowledge that Sister Location is some sort of underground bunker. After all, we take an elevator all the way down to get there. Now, many people believe it's canon that it's a part of the FNAF 4 house, or at least attached to it. It's never directly stated, but it does seem
Maybe.
likely. Regardless, a weird part about it has always been, how did William Afton get that much money to build an underground laboratory next to his house in the early days of the timeline when it was just like Fredbear's Family Diner? It ain't that successful, dog. Edwin Murray was at one point a wildly successful inventor and used that money to make these underground laboratories directly connected to the house that becomes the FNAF 4 house. All William would have to do when he bought the property and Edwin died is renovate it into the FNAF 4 house and the Sister Location bunker. The infrastructure was already there. He just had to change
Yeah.
what it was being used for.
Good
It goes even
point.
deeper than that. because
That actually
what
makes
do
that
we
make so much more
find
sense.
underneath the security breach pizzaplex, the FNAF 6 fake pizzeria, something that a lot of us have been struggling to figure out why it suddenly sunk into the ground. And then Secret of the
Sinkhole.
Mimic gave us an answer. It was never above ground to begin with. Because what do we see underground on the same plot of land that the Pizzaplex is built on? A fake pizzeria with enough surrounding rooms to build the exact traps we see in FNAF 6. Just like William renovated the laboratories to become the Sister Location bunker, all Henry would have had to do is renovate the FNAF 6 pizzeria into a trap. After all, he
Why
was
would
involved in
Michael
the
go
project.
down
He
there?
knows for a fact it's there. And the fact that both these locations are connected via tunnel means that in Ruin, when we're escaping FNAF 6 and running through caves, there's a chance that the scooper we've encountered is the Sister Location scooper. We're just now seeing it for real for the first time. But that's just buildings. What do we know about
Design's
the
completely
animatronics?
different, though.
One of the largest worries that a lot of FNAF fans had after playing this game was that initially it seems like it's saying that William and Henry didn't invent any of the animatronics, and they were all made by Edwin Murray, this guy we've never heard of before.
Well,
That's
not Bonnie
quite
and
true.
Freddy.
First of all, the main FNAF cast, the Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy we see at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, are not finished. They're not even halfway done. They are barely at the prototype stage. So even if they use these prototypes by Edwin Murray, that would be like saying if I laid the foundation of your house and then like the outline for the walls for the first floor, and then you built a 2-story floor, that I built the house. You know what I mean? Not to mention the chance that they didn't use these prototypes at all. And then there's the spring lock
I think
suit.
it's
The things
most
that infamously
likely
caused a lot of
that-
things to die in Five Nights at Freddy's. Was that also Edwin Murray's fault? Well,
Technically.
no. We see Edwin Murray springlock suits in Secret of the Mimic, and they're way safer than anything we've seen
Yeah, I think.
prior. I mean,
Yeah,
Arnold
probably actually
falls
just
multiple
William
stories
Henry
within a springlock
recreations
suit
probably
and
weren't that
easily
good.
Gets out of it. He's fine. Meanwhile, William Afton puts on a slightly damp one and brutally dies for like hours. So because there's a huge difference of these suits, I think they're just that, different suits. Edwin Murray made some, but the ones that were used by Fazbear were made by William and Henry. So reviewing all of this, it seems like even though a lot of the buildings used by Fazbear were inherited from Murray's costume manor, the technology itself was still William and Henry primarily. So that's the game, its story, and some of the theories that we've made so far. The question still
Okay.
remains, what don't we know about Secret of the Mimic? What haven't we been able to solve in the year that we've had this game for? Well, it's mainly mysteries that just need more information. Like,
Yeah, it
where
makes
does the
sense.
Mimic go between Secret of the Mimic and Ruin? We know it
What's the
starts
time
in that
gap?
FNAF 6 pizzeria, and it ends up back there, but surely it wasn't there the whole time. Did Fazbear use it at any point?
Maybe.
Why is it damaged by the time of Ruin? Furthermore, where is M1 now? I said
No
that I
clue.
believe she's the AI running the Pizzaplex, but that's basically just speculation. Many people think she's Glitch Trap, and there's valid interpretations for both. And we still don't even know the significance of Sun and Moon, a now
Yeah,
very important
yeah.
character, because in Moon.exe, we literally become half of it as the Mimic. So clearly this thing's important.
You get Sun
but we
and
don't know
Moon
why.
as separate
so most
characters.
of the mysteries that we have yet been able to solve, like most FNAF mysteries, are things we just need more information for. There was no way to
Hall
solve
of
what
security
was going on in
breach.
FNAF 1 before at the earliest FNAF sister location. To really solve it, you kind of got the gist, but if you wanted answers, you had to wait. But all in all, Secret of the Mimic has been an incredibly helpful game for the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, yeah,
Iron
definitely.
out a lot of the weirdness of the very
Yeah,
beginning
definitely
of the
iron
timeline,
out a
all the while
lot.
being, frankly, probably the scariest mainline FNAF game we've ever gotten.
Funnest,
Which is why
in my
even a year
opinion,
later,
too.
I love the game and love going back to it. Meanwhile, I only go back to Security Breach for challenge runs, like this one, which you can watch
Security
right
Breach
now.
isn't that
and don't
fun.
forget to use my link in the description to sign up for free cash today and get a $10.
Yeah, as always, support the content creators. Man, okay. It's good you caught up on this type of stuff, because while I do watch a lot of theory videos, I don't remember a lot of it. So getting all this, getting a recap is nice. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. This game's very helpful, while also giving us much more mystery and questions. Mimic makes a bit more sense with this game, a lot more, really. But it's really just giving us a lot more questions, like every FNAF game does. And I genuinely wonder when we're going to get another game. I mean, like, it's not like I'm complaining and I want a new game. It's just been a year now. It just got ported to VR, which I find insane that they ported Secret of the Mimic to VR. That's cool. But, like, I do wonder when's the next game and what it will be. Is it going to be Chica's Party World? But we'll just have to wait for the future. So, as always, like and subscribe to Rytoast. They make great theory videos. Like and subscribe. Like and just I can't speak sometimes. Like and subscribe to Rytoast and myself. Go check out my other channel, Gresnick Plays, and join my Discord studio in my YouTube description to post memes and suggest videos. I haven't done one of these in a while, so I'm bad at my outro. Go watch my Deltarune playthrough on the other channel, which should be fully out now if I'm correct. And have a good day, night, and afternoon, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.